Hello everyone, just a quick sound check, making sure you can hear me. If anyone could let me know if they can hear the audio in the background. I'm not sure if the music's playing or... So, hello everyone, welcome to round 4 and 5 of Newton League in SRGL. So, tonight we're going to be in France and Canada. And unlike the first few races, we're going to have the formation lap off as it's come to light that issues with tyre wear for some people. I think the person that hosts the lobby is the only one that has tyres up to the correct. There is an audio glitch linked to that as well. So, in the interest of fairness to everybody, the formation lap is disabled. So, it'll literally be lights out and away we go as we hit the grid. So, won't have time to have a look at the tyre strategies or update everybody on the championship. So, I'll just do that now. So let's have a quick look at the standings after 3 rounds. So Casto has won 2 races out of the 3 we've had so far, and the other one won by Surveillors. But because Castro's a reserve, he's not part of the official championship. So Balix is actually leading that on account of the 2 podiums he got in the last 2 races. So Balix currently leads the championship on 42 points, 6 points ahead of VDV. Who also has a couple of podiums to his name, and Infamous on 32 points are your top three, all with 2 podiums each, and then Traw on 31 points in P4, Desert Rat not racing tonight in P5 on 27, Surveyors on 26 in P6, then a tie for P7 with Chinchilla and Mystic. Mystic serving a race ban for the French Grand Prix tonight, but he'll join for the Canadian Grand Prix later on. They're on 24 points. Then Aces versus Kings on 17, and Harry Bix rounding out the top 10 on 15 points. Then Eskimo and Acuna tied on 12 points each, Spaceman on 10, and the drivers yet to score are Flamour, Simps, GMAC, Shermanator, Farsize, and Chapa, and Sega Clan, who's actually left the league, so he's no longer going to be competing. And we've got two reserve drivers that have scored points so far. That's Casto on 60 and Ichikle on 6. And in the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes are leading the way on 77 points, followed by Ferrari on 51, Red Bull on 42, Haas on 39, AlphaTauri 37, Alfa Romeo 36, Williams 32, Aston Martin 26, Alpine 22, and McLaren on 12 points. So that's the state of play heading in to the races tonight, and it looks like everyone's readying up and all set to go. Mercedes are leading the way on 77 points, followed by Ferrari on 51, leading up, and Mercedes are leading the way on 77 points, followed by Ferrari on 51, leading up, and so looks like we've got a little bit of a hold up. Maybe somebody's disconnected from the lobby. I think it might be Harry actually, looking at the people in. We've got 16 in tonight, I think. $15. So we've got a few reserve drivers. We've got Casto, who at this rate might as well be a full-timer in Newton as well, but he's already a full-timer in Einstein. Barry Kruger standing in for Desert Rats, and the other driver is Rob standing in for Shermanator in the Alfa Romeo. And I'm just checking through the lobby who's missing. Mystic, of course, will join for race 2. It does, I think Harry's disconnected and will reconnect at some point. So it looks like we're ready to go now. So last time out in Brazil, Casto won, followed by Balix and Infamous, if I remember correctly, and then in Imola it was Surveyors leading from start to finish, and that won, and that was VDV and Balix completing the podium there too. So the race in Imola was pretty entertaining, so let's hope for more of the same as we head to Paul Ricard for round 4 of the championship. So I think Harry's internet issues will mean he'll miss this race, so let's hope he can rejoin for Canada. So just a reminder, no formation lap. Everyone will start with cold tyres, but this is due to some technical issues with the game. Let's hope they can all be resolved in the next patch or two. So it's looking like a sunny day in the south of France. So, I mean, with the 25 percenters, the hard tyres are pretty much a no-no, but if someone has to pit early, it'd be interesting to see if they can make the hard tyres work. I don't think anyone's tried that strategy yet, or would dare to. Okay, so I need to get the telemetry and things up and running fairly quickly as we head to the grid. We're waiting for people to join. And we're underway. I don't have access to the telemetry at the moment. But here we go. And that's a good start for Traw. We've jumped on board with Eskimo there. Everyone into turn one safely, I think. Oh, and there's a Ferrari spinning in the back, and that's... I think it might be King Chinchilla. In fact, it's Barry Kruger's. Both Ferraris at the back, so a bad start for those guys. Let's get everything up. So this is why the formation lap is useful, because we can get all this stuff ready. But Traw has already built up a nearly 2.5 second lead on Surveillors in P2, Simps in P3, VDV in P4. Now let's have a look at the two Ferrari boys. So the Ferrari boys not having a good start of this race. Let's have a look at positions gained. So Traw up 2 positions from his starting spot. Simps has made the biggest jump up 6 places, and Traw's lead is really quite strong at this early stage. Infamous and Balix, Aces and Casto all in hot pursuit. Eskimo down 10 places from the start, and Chinchilla down 11. So not the best start for those guys, as Traw heads round the final corner to complete the first lap of 13. He leads by nearly 3 seconds from Surveillors, who has also made a great start. Simps up into the final podium position and is under challenge from VDV. And then there's a little bit of a gap back to Infamous. And we've got a yellow flag in Sector 1. I think at the first corner, and it's Traw. We missed that off camera. Traw has lost the lead. He must have spun it out, and he's down to P8. Now, Traw has been guilty of a few errors here and there, and he'll be absolutely kicking himself with that. So Surveillors now inherits the lead after that mistake from Traw, and he's under pressure from Rob in the Alfa Romeo. DRS not activated yet. And Rob's thinking about a move down the inside. Of course, with Rob being a reserve, he can't attempt any 50-50 moves. There looks like a car glitching up ahead. Might have been Casto with his potato internet, as it's well known. So Simps is now the next challenger for Surveillors. So Surveillors on a roll here. Won the last race in Imola and is now leading this one in France. And Traw now stuck in a train behind the 2 Mercedes cars of Casto and Aces versus Kings, and of course Casto reserved. We'll want to maybe try and protect his teammate, and we've got an overtake from to Cunha and Eskimo and Rob. Rob lost out somewhere there. And Servilia sets the fastest lap. Now we've got a yellow flag further back. That's Spaceman in the Alpine further back. So he's may have probably either spun out or had an incident, and there's a. And now Servilius has dropped out of the lead, and it looked like a collision with a Mercedes, maybe? No, surely not a collision. They were too far apart. But in the space of 2 laps, we've now seen the lead change hand 3 times. Simps now takes the lead, and I think Servilius did exactly the same thing as Traw did. Wow. So that turn 1 chicane can catch a lot of people out. If you put one wheel on the curb, you can easily spin out. So I just wonder if that's what happened to Servilius as well. Let's jump on board with this battle here between Balix, Casto and Traw now. Casto very close behind Balix here. So not sure what happened to Aces. Casto was behind Aces before the final corner, but now Aces has dropped down to P11. There's a change between the 2 Ferraris, and there's another yellow flag, and it's VDV this time. So VDV, who was in 2nd place, has now dropped to P6. What is going on here? So Infamous is now up into P2. And we've got a bit of a DRS train behind Balix here with Casto very close behind the Red Bull. And we've got yet another yellow flag, so on track that looks like a Ferrari further back. On the final corner, and Casto's got such good slipstream here on Balix. So Cunha now making up places after losing some out at the start as well. So Servilia is back down to P8 after that incident. So let's ride on board with Casto now, who's going to take Balix here with DRS down the long back straight to the chicane, and that's a fairly straightforward move done before he reaches the apex. Aces gets past Eskimo further back, and now Balix will have to defend hard from Traw in the Alpha Tauri. So of course Balix is managing to stay within the 1 second of Casto, who will now set his sights on Infamous, who's currently occupying P2. One thing we haven't checked is the tyre strategy. So the top 3 guys are on medium tyres as well. Cunha's on the hards, so that, and Eskimo's on the hards as well. So either that was a bold strategy call or an error, and we've got a bit of a cluster at the back of the pack. We've had a yellow flag out. We've got Rob Servilius in the pits. Let's cut back to Traw now, and Traw's run very wide there, and that's surely going to be a track limit warning from there, and he's lost some ground to Balix because of that. But still within the DRS quickly, but Balix is in the DRS of Casto, and we've got yet another Ferrari spinning out. Barry Kruger. So let's cut back on board with Traw, but he's, like I say, he's lost some ground to Balix there, and Balix has fallen out of the DRS of Casto. The Casto is now gaining on Infamous, half a second behind, and I think Spaceman in the Alpine is not having the best of evenings. He's almost being caught by the leaders now. Simps has built up a 2.5 second lead, but look at Traw, look at the power of the slipstream and the ERS. Balix holds his line through the corner. Traw thinks about a move down the inside. Balix defends it well, keeps to the line, and it's very brave to attempt an overtake there. And Traw will want to be patient by this time. Both these guys on the soft tyres, the guys on the mediums are putting in a good stint here. They're going to pull away from this gap, and Balix pits and gets a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Now that looked very suspiciously well before the speed limit line to me for Balix, so I think he's been very unlucky there. I'm not sure if Traw got the same penalty. But Rob and Spaceman further back have got penalties, so I think there's something funny about that pit lane speed limit line, and there's a yellow flag in sector 3, and it looks like an alpha, and I think it is Rob. So Traw and Balix have pitted for the medium tyres. The first of the pit stops. Rob and Sevilliers of course pitted on the previous lap. Now Traw doesn't have the penalty, Balix does. So maybe there's been a change to where the pit lane speed limit line is. It looked to me that that penalty came up well before he reached the line. But let's cut back to the battle for the lead now, or the battle for the podium positions. Casto ever closer to the Williams of Infamous. I reckon within the next couple of laps we'll see these guys peel off into the pits and put on the soft. Oh, Infamous very wide there. And yet another yellow flag within sector 1 and 2. But Casto is all over the back of Infamous here. And the yellow flags are going crazy, and I think Spaceman has had an issue further up. Infamous is going to pit. So he's trying to prevent an undercut from happening. And maybe try and defend from Casto by putting on a fresher set of tyres. So Casto stays out, Infamous is in. Acuna on the hard tyres, doing pretty well, up in P4, out now to P3. So he's going very long on those tyres, and maybe putting on a fresh set of softs towards the end. Ace is up into P5. Eskimo also on the hards, doing a good job up into P6. Of course, Balix and Traw will surely get the undercut on those guys. And did Traw get Balix somewhere on track? And he's also ahead of Sevilliers as well. Well, Traw was behind Balix before the pit stop, so I wonder if he's overtaken him on track somewhere. But there's quite a big gap between him and Sevilliers, so Balix is lost out somewhere. I missed that off camera, unfortunately. Let's cut on to this battle here with Barry Kruger in the DRS of Infamous. Barry yet to pit. Infamous out on a fresh set of soft tyres, so he'll be in the warm-up phase at the moment, so Barry will have a bit of an edge on him at the moment, but those soft tyres will take about half a lap to get up to temperature, and then Infamous will surely pull away, being on the faster rubber. Thomas cheering on his buddy Traw. Wow, another yellow flag comes out in sector 3, and that's Spaceman again, who I think is just not disconnected, he's just not having the best of races. Okay, so Simps is in the pits now from the lead. Onto the soft tyres. Casto in the lead now. Acuna is also in, so Acuna, I thought, might have gone a bit longer on those hard tyres. Eskimo as well in the pits. Gets a 3-second penalty for corner cutting. Acuna puts on the soft tyres. Aces is up into the podium. VDV after his spin in sector 3 earlier on, back up into the podium positions, but of course is yet to pit. So Simps at the moment will, I think, comfortably have the net race lead at the moment. Infamous is now catching Chinchilla. Infamous the meat in the Ferrari sandwich here. And Infamous will surely breeze past the Ferrari with the help of DRS on the back straight and the extra grip that the soft tyres will give him. And this is looking pretty good for a solid podium for Infamous at the moment, and that's a very straightforward overtake. No point defending from a car that's almost a second faster in terms of the tyre delta. So Infamous up into P5. I can't see the full comment, Thomas, I'll have a look at it later. And Casto is now in the pits, asking me to keep an eye on Traw. I'm trying to be fair to all the drivers and give them their chance to shine. So Casto now pits from the lead, bolts on the soft tyres. VDV picks up a time penalty. They seem to be getting a time penalty for that pit lane entry. I wonder if they're cutting across the white line and that's where they're getting the penalty from. Aces is now in the pits and he'll be on the soft tyres. Chinchilla gets a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, which isn't very good. And Infamous now will overtake them all. Now has Casto's managed to get Infamous with the overcut. So Infamous pitted before Casto, was ahead of him on track, but now Casto has made the overcut work and is now up into P2. Simps, with a penalty now, will want to try and build on that gap. Let's look at the penalties. 3 seconds, and the gap to Casto is 3.4. So Simps will be pushing like mad to try and break that 3-second barrier, but Casto could always pick up a 3-second penalty himself if he's not careful. And Traw has managed to recover all the way up into P4 after that spin out from the lead. Barry Kruger yet to pit. Servilia's pitted very early on and is now under pressure from Balax. But Balax, of course, has that 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Acuna on the soft tyres will presumably close up on the medium runners in front of him. And then we got VDB further back, and the rest of the field behind have all got penalties of various degrees. So we got a few 5 seconds there, we got a few 3-second corner cut penalties, we've got a yellow flag in the final sector, and I think that's Spaceman, who's almost a lap down now. And he's about to be lapped by Simps in the McLaren. But of course, good things that Spaceman keeps going because points are awarded down to P15 and Simps sits the fastest lap of the race. At the moment, that's an extra point for him. And he's lost a couple attempts to Casto on that last lap. But it was good enough for fastest lap. And Barry now finally pits. So he'll go into the soft tyres. Let's have a look at this battle here. Balax is closing on Servilia's. The top 4 positions have stabilised a little bit. We'll keep an eye on that. And Balax is on the fresher medium tyres, has got much more grip at this stage compared to Servilia, who did pit early on. And Balax will surely, with the aid of DRS, get Servilia's, and Servilia's got a pretty good exit there. And further behind we've got VDV closing in on a move on Acuna. VDV goes to the inside on the soft tyres, both these drivers. Oh, Servilia took a big chunk of curb there to get past Acuna. Might have got a warning for that, but nonetheless he gets past Acuna and up into P7. And he is now got his sights set on Balax and possibly Servilia's in front. And Barry Kruger has had a coming together with Eskimo possibly. It looks like Eskimo was recovering from an incident there, and Rob further back. So that's what the yellow flag was for. Spaceman getting lapped by Traw now. Casto sets the fastest lap and is now within 2.5 seconds, so is within the 3-second window that he needs. As long as he doesn't get a penalty himself, he'll inherit P1 from Simps. So the closest battle on track is this one between Balax and Servilia's, and VDV is slowly but surely catching them and is actually taking a good couple attempts out of Balax there, heading on to Sector 1. And this is a fantastic karma angle. I wish we could just have this on default for the whole race. So we've got a 3-car train here, battle for P5. I like that camera angle. Balax is closing. Let's have a look at the ERS status. Balax has got a chunk of ERS. VDV is practically none, so he'll struggle to recover a lot of that. Balax with very sensible strategic use of the ERS is saving his battery to attack Servilia's but also defend from VDV. He's on the soft tyres, and Balax got a very good momentum out of that corner there and is closing on Servilia's. His tyres might be beginning to go at the moment. He's pitted very early on. The tyre life isn't much between them, to be honest. But Balax is making the best of these mediums at the moment. Let's stick with this battle because it is the closest. VDV as well is really catching Balax now. DRS open, bit of a train. Acuna trying to stick with this group. Oh, VDV didn't get the best of exits there, and that's allowed Ballix to get away. Sevilius seems to have really good straight line speed, which is allowing him to maintain position ahead of Ballix. The Ballix seems to have good speed through the corners. Yellow flag in sector 2, Spaceman again. Ballix has got good momentum here, and this is surely a pass for P5 down the inside of Sevilius. And Ballix gets to the apex before the Aston Martin and moves up into P5, but of course with the penalty you'll drop down the field. You might want to, if there was an issue with the pit lane speed limit, you might want to report that in the incident report, but we'll wait and see, because it did, from my feed anyway, it looked like he braked well before the line, but we'll see later on. So Ballix up in our position. Sevilla now will be under attack from VDV. We're on the last lap of the race, and on this last lap Casto has closed massively on Simps, who is now defending for his life, and of course he does have that 3-second penalty, so Casto really could afford to just not go for any bold moves. He can, of course he'll probably want to win this on track, and Simps has made an error coming out of that corner, and Casto says thanks very much and takes the position. A bit of a snap of oversteer there, looked like, for Simps, and that has cost him the lead. You'll have the DRS on Casto, and he's going to go for it. Down the inside, Casto doesn't need to fight this. Casto does fight it, and Simps takes to the rumble strip, and Casto maintains P1, infamous. Comfortable in P2, Traw in P3, and then the gap to Ballix, who's managed to withstand pressure from Sevilius and who's under pressure from VDV. And there's an overtake further up. Casto and Simps still battling for the lead to get the bragging rights on track. Oh, and Simps again with another snap there. Apologise for missing that. I thought it was a fait accompli really, and Casto looks like he's low on fuel, I think. Nah, he builds up the speed, he's fine. Casto weaving across the line, takes the win. And unbelievably, his third win in 4 races. And he's not even a full-timer in this league. Simpson P2, that's his first podium of the season, so congratulations to Simps. Infamous, the final podium, the final driver on the podium. Traw in P4, Sevilius P5, and with Ballix's penalty he drops from P5 down to P8. Tacunya in P6, I believe, overtook VDV on penalties. Aces in P9, Chinchilla in P10, and Barry Kruger in P11. Eskimo in P12, Rob in P13, and Spaceman, who is a lap down, will cross the line to finish in P14. And that was the French Grand Prix in Newton Lake. Casto inevitably gets driver of the day from Codemasters. Started near the back, takes the win, and it's the defending champion in Einstein in the Mercedes. He keeps winning in the Mercedes. Yeah, he's a Red Bull fan. I don't think he wants to jump out the Mercedes seat if it's bringing this much good luck and good fortune. So let's recap. Casto wins the race after starting P12. Also gets the fastest lap. Simps on the podium in P2. Infamous in P3. Traw in P4. Seviliers in P5. Good recovery after his spin out early on. Both him and Traw from the lead. Tacunya in P6. VDV P7 also spun out. Ballix in P8. Aces vs Kings P9, Chinchilla P10, Barry Kruger P11, Eskimo P12, Robin P13, Spaceman P14. Every driver finished the race, which is good to see. So we'll have hopefully the two Haas boys of Mystic and Harry join in for race 2 in Canada. This is also a chance to vote for your community driver of the day. Everyone in the SRGL Discord to vote for the driver you think deserves an extra point for their performance in this race. A lot of contenders here. So we'll take a break for maybe 10 minutes or so and we'll return at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Canada. Okay, we're back for a Canadian Grand Prix, round 5 of the championship in Newton League. And I was just checking the YouTube comment from Traw's buddy Thomas. Traw, it's my favourite driver commentator, can you please mention that? Everyone, Thomas's favourite driver is Traw. So I'm sure you'll be pleased with the P4 that he got in the last race in France. So as you can see, Harry and Mystic have joined the lobby in the 2 Haas cars. So Mystic served a ban in France for some incidents he was involved in the previous race in Imola, and Harry on account of his internet. So it's good to have those boys back here with us for Canada, and looks like we're all set for a dry race here at the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve. Mainstay on the Formula 1 calendar for many years, although it had 1 year off in 2009 randomly. And well, and of course during the COVID hit 2020 season. And the 2021 season, I think, as well, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, everyone remembers that classic race in 2011 that Jenson Button won in the rain. 5.5 hours or so. And anyway, let's head to what we're about to witness now, which is SRGL Newton League, and we're underway with Spaceman on pole, leading away in the Alpine from Rob in the Alfa Romeo and Eskimo, and a Spaceman gets an excellent start. And further back we've got some collisions, and that's a McLaren at the back. It's Simps, of course, who won was second in the previous race, not making the best of starts here. Let's get the telemetry all sorted out. I still need to get it sorted. There we go. Let's get the position changes, of course, because at this early stage we want to know who's made up ground. VDV up 4 places, Mystic up 6 places from his start. And we've got Infamous at the back. Infamous has been caught up in an incident somewhere. And we've got the spinner, D'Acunha. Eskimo gets past him. Chinchilla down 1 place, Balix up 2 places, Villiers and Traub 3. Harry and Mystic exchanging places in the Haas cars. So the Haas cars would have started near the back and making up ground, and that's a big dive from Simps on Mystic into the hairpin. Gets the traction out the corner and gets the position. They're side by side going down the back straight. Meanwhile, Balix is getting past the Ferrari of Chinchilla here as they head down to the final chicane near the Wall of Champions. And Spaceman defending hard from Rob in the Alfa Romeo. Let's look at the tyre situation. Bases on the hards. Probably not what he wanted. But we've got, looks like more or less the majority of the field on medium tyres. Mystic and Eskimo on the softs, everyone else on the mediums except Aces on the hards. Let's have a look through the field. We don't have any early pit stops at the moment. Everyone is pretty packed together. Barry Kruger in P3 defending, and the Chinchilla has had an incident. A spin for the Ferrari, and he's back around. So no coming off of him. You've got a yellow flag. The Cunha further back. BDV now on Barry Kruger, who's the reserve driver in the Ferrari. Looks like we might have a change for the lead soon as well. Spaceman touching the wall of champions. Rob smells blood in the water and is going to try and move down the inside or down the outside. He gets the inside for the next corner. Rob, Spaceman defending hard. Rob down the inside, gets the move done. He's got the inside line for the next corner. Oh, and Spaceman cuts across and takes the place back, and that unsettles Rob, and Rob makes contact with the wall and surely got wing damage there. Troll gets a 3-second time penalty and Rob understeers through the chicane. Spaceman beginning to pull away. There's a yellow flag further back. An incident with Chinchilla. And it looked like the Alpine of Dacuna and Chinchilla in the wall again. He'll surely have damage. Oh, and we've got some tasty action here between Troll and Harry. Harry going down the inside, and Chinchilla has retired from the race. On track, his car is still moving, so I wonder if that's... He's just decided to call it a day there and then. Yellow flags are out. Just in sector 1 and 2. Everyone's still at racing speed. So Spaceman, Rob must have got damage with that incident with Spaceman, and he's still going, but Spaceman has built up a huge lead. Alex now, the DRS on Barry Kruger. Good slipstream. Oh, feels like late down the inside. Barry tries to come back around the outside, but Balix has got the move done and is up into the podium. Oh, and there's a free wide here between Traw, Harry and Simps. Oh, and that's Harry down the inside of Traw. And Traw lost out in that exchange. Everyone's still quite tightly packed together here. Civilians now thinking about a move on Barry Kruger here. Let's see if Civilians makes a move down into the hairpin. He's thinking about it. Barry late on the brakes there, almost went into the back of Balix there. And the Ferrari will get the DRS on the Red Bull and the Aston Martin. In fact, Sevillas has got a really good launch here. Sevillas passed Barry Kruger before the final chicane. Excuse me. Very easy to mess up there and hit into the wall champions. Sevillas now will be chasing after Balix. We've got a position change between Infamous and Eskimo. Oh, and there's side-by-side action. Eskimo's spun! Eskimo and Rob by the look of it, and Eskimo's lost out in that exchange. Rob and Eskimo were side by side going into the corner, and of course Rob, being a reserve driver, has to take extra care when racing the full timers, and Eskimo lost it big time there. Surely got damage. We just caught the tail end of that incident. Oh, and just as we jumped on board Mystic, he's in the wall facing the wrong way. Looked like he lost it by himself there. Ace is struggling to make inroads on those hard tyres. Mystic is down at P14 now. Castro now right behind Traw. Spaceman still leads from VDV, from Balix, from Cervillos and Barry Kruger. Let's ride on board with Castro. Stuck in a bit of a DRS train behind Traw, Harry and Simps, and Traw gets a fantastic, Castro gets a fantastic exit here and is going to get Traw down into turn 1 surely. Fantastic exit from that corner, and Castro is up into P8 over Traw. I don't know if my screen glitched a little bit there, but it looked like Traw was coming back at him. Oh, and Traw a little bit scruffy there through the chicane, touching the wall. Let's move further up the field. Sevillas now trying to catch Balix, who looks like he's eaten into VDV's gap as well. And we've got a yellow flag, and that is the Haas of... Oh, and Rob's been involved in a collision somewhere. I think the Haas in question is Mystic in the chicane. And Rob has had an incident somewhere, and that's brought out the yellow flags, but not enough to bring out a safety car yet. Any other position changes so far? I don't believe so. We need that helicam, don't we? So, Spaceman still leading. Cap to VDV is 1.7. Balix a further 1.2, 1.3 behind VDV. Cervillos closing the gap to Balix. Half a second now. Barry still staying within the DRS of Civiliers, being caught by Simps. And then there's a very close battle between Harry and Casto. Let's jump on board. Oh, and Harry, just as I jump on board Harry, he's spun it into the wall, and that's the second Haas driver to go into the wall. Possible damage to the car. Infamous gets past him, and as does Troll. And we've got a couple of cars in the pits, I believe. I think Mystic and Eskimo have pitted. We've got a yellow flag in the start-finish straight. I don't know if that's for an Alfa Romeo. Might be Rob that's in the pits as well. Oh, Rob is DNF in the pits. Okay, that'll be what that's for. It looks like we've got an Alpine in the pits as well. Indeed, we've got Spaceman pitting from the lead. VDB takes the lead. Balix and Servilia's up into the podium. Look how close it is between second down to fifth. Balix, Servilia's, Barry and Simps all within a couple of seconds of each other. Looks like we've got an Alfa Romeo that's ghosted in the middle of the track. And I think that might be Rob's DNF car. But thankfully it's out of the way now and there's no yellow flags. We've got a Mercedes in the pits. I think that is Casto. Now, I think that is a scheduled stop for Casto. So Casto onto the soft tyres for the remainder of the race now. It's very hard to try and keep up with all the action. I hope you're getting the best of it here, guys. Alex seems to have very good straight line speed and is managing to withstand the pressure from Servilias. Alex gets a much better exit there and is able to pull the gap a little bit. Infamous, after his issue at the start of the race, has done well to make it up to P7. Spaceman, of course, is pitted and he's back down to P8. Harry gets a penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Until he added this time, we've got quite a few penalties kicking about. Let's have a quick look at the penalty situation. If I can get this sorted out. We've got a few 3-second penalties. Traw's got 6 seconds now, which isn't great for him. Hi Harvey. Virginia now adds to the collection of penalties. So Balix now. I think that gap is between him and VDB is stabilised at around about 1.5 seconds. And Servilia's now. We've got the DRS, of course. No, I think it's only a matter of time before these guys at the front pit for the tyres. Balix. No, Servilia's goes into the pits. Did Balix try to sell him a dummy there? So, Servilia's pits from P3. And this looks like an overtake from Simps on Barry Kruger. And it is. Great move from Simps down the inside. Spaceman gets a penalty. That's 6 seconds now. That's not good for his chances of winning this race. And it looks like we've got an Alpine. And it's Spaceman himself. And he's beached it on the curb. It looks like he's stuck. And he's reset the track because of that. No, I don't know if that was the game that did that. But he was beached on that curb. So Spaceman, not the best couple of laps for him. Back down to P12 now. Oh, and Traw is in the wall. And Traw spun out from the lead in France and has had issues here. Let's see if he's got damage. He does in-plate damage, so that is his race ruined. So you'll have to pit now surely for soft tyres. And a front wing change, which will add more time onto his race, unfortunately for him. And we've got Balix in the pits now. Barry up to P3. Simps up into P2. VDB stays out, so Balix is looking for the undercut and VDB Infamous. Now, I don't think Infamous is pitted yet. Balix is coming out on the soft tyres after starting on the medium. Here comes Servilias. Let's see if Servilias gets the The undercut on Balix, and I think Balix made the overcut work. Well, he wasn't overcut really, was he? He was still ahead of Cerveliers. He was ahead of Cerveliers before the pit stops, and he's managed to maintain position ahead of Cerveliers. But of course, he's in the warm-up phase at the moment. Cerveliers has got his tyres up to temperature. But the key thing for Balix is he's on the softs, whereas Cerveliers is on the mediums. So eventually, the softs will take over as the fast tyre, and Cerveliers goes down the inside. Cerveliers knows he has to get the move done if he wants to get position on Balix. But Balix, of course, will play the long game. Knows that once his tyres are up to temperature, he'll have the advantage on the medium shod Cerveliers. You can see now Balix is going to surely get Cerveliers with the DRS down the back straight here. Oh, and Simps has now got a penalty, and that's going to be crucial for the outcome of the podium position, so Simps was running in good position. Balix and Cerveliers could be in a good position here for the race win. Cerveliers defending, Balix with the DRS, blast past the Aston Martin down into turn 1, and you can't really defend that. Oh, and look at Simps. Simps coming out of the pits, overshoots the exit, and is right in the thick of this battle. Cerveliers thinks about a move down the inside. Balix closes the door and keeps the position, but now Cerveliers is on, Simps is on soft tyres as well. So he will be in the thick of this battle for the podium. Barry Kruger having a very solid race in the Ferrari. And it looks like we've got a full course yellow. In fact, we do. We've got a safety car. Now, what was the safety car for? Well, Mystic is missing his front wing, so it could be for that. And this changes the complexion of this race now, particularly for the likes of Traw and Spaceman, who both spun out through incidents of their own. Infamous is not one pitted for softs, so that will have benefited him. The question now, VDV, this is timed perfectly for VDV and Barry, who are yet to make their stops, and they'll put on the softs now. Balix. These guys look as if they're still racing speed, but Cerveliers is now... I hope these boys know it's a safety car. They're trying to get out ahead of the Ferrari, and the Ferrari of Barry Kruger just keeps the position ahead of Balix. That might have been why they were pushing. They were pushing to try and get ahead of the Ferrari. But VDV, this has worked out beautifully for him. He's on softs. He's now leading the race from Barry Kruger. Balix in P3, Cerveliers in P4, Simps in P5 as they all begin to bunch up behind the safety car. Infamous, brilliant drive to recover to P6 after his incident at the beginning. Aces as well after starting on the hards. He's made up positions up in P7, Troll and P8. Troy in P8, D'Acunha P9, Casto, who's kind of been lost in the wilderness in this race, in P10. Spaceman, Eskimo, Harry and Mystic round out the 14 runners left in this race. Rob and Chinchilla, your DNFs earlier on. So we've got 5 laps to go, so this is effectively going to be a 3 to 4 lap sprint. Looks like we're going to have at least 1 lap under the safety car as the back markers tag onto the snake behind the safety car. Let's have a quick look at the penalties. So look at the penalties. Balix and Cerveliers are looking, if they can maintain the gaps to Barry and VDV and the softs, then they're in the prime position for at least 2 spots on the podium. Simps is 11 seconds, so you could probably count him out of the podium unless something spectacular happens. 11 seconds of penalties is a lot. And then we've got Mystic on 9, Spaceman and Troll on 6 seconds worth of penalties. Acuna, Aces and Infamous on 3 seconds of penalties. Everyone else is penalty free. And in terms of the tyre situation, just Cerveliers and Eskimo on the medium tyres. So Cerveliers is going to be, it's going to have to work hard to get those tyres up to temperature, but it's going to be swamped surely by the soft runners behind them on the restart. So taking Casto out of the equation in terms of the championship, it's very open. with Infamous getting a podium in the last race, and with VDV and Balix up there, and Cervilliers up there. It's looking very tasty in this championship. So everyone's bunched up now, so we'll surely have the safety car in this lap. We'll have DRS for a couple of these laps probably. Or maybe they're just on the final lap, come to think of it. Indeed, there we go. So VDV will now bunch the pack up. Let's hope we don't see any unnecessary penalties for collisions behind the safety car at this stage. So VDV will want to nail this restart. Safety car in the pit lane now, VDV punching the pack up. When does he decide to floor it? And he's not yet, but he will now on the exit, surely. Yes, here we go. Barry's managed to stick with him. Barry thinking about it, we moved down the inside. The reserve driver shouldn't go for 50-50s, but that was good. He respected VDV's position there. Balix has managed to close up that. Something happened to Infamous. I think he's got a corner cut penalty by the look of it. He's up to 6 seconds of penalties. Harry's got past Eskimo. Mystic with a time penalty. It's all clean through the first few corners, which is good. Until the first yellow flag comes out, and that's Eskimo with a missing front wing. It's unfortunate for Eskimo. VDV now pulling the gap to Barry Kruger, almost a second now. Crucial that he gets out of that DRS position. And he'll come piling down to the hairpin. Great camera shot, and that's a Haas up, well, through the middle of the Mercedes car. Looks like, I think it might have been an AlphaTauri actually, come to think of it. And we've got Infamous and indeed Cervilliers was swamped. And Cervilliers overtaken by Infamous. Stroll with another penalty. Castro is falling further down the order, and Castro's in the pits, so he had a collision somewhere. And no, he's not even changing his front wing. He's going for a set of fresh softs. Okay, maybe he wants the fastest lap. Meanwhile, status quo maintained up top. VDV from Barry from Balix. And we had a move from Harry on Spaceman further back. Traw now. Oh, and this is and there's a ghosted Haas car in the field, and there must be, oh, and Mystic has spun out. I think Mystic looks like he's a lap down onto the Delta, and I think he just spun out there. And oh, and Ace is very deep into the corner and loses the position, loses 2 positions, I think. Definitely lost the position to Shaw. And Mystic has retired from the race. Let's have a look at Barry. See, Barry's managed to get within a point of a second ahead of Barry Kruger, and Balix has picked up a time penalty. Cervilliers and Harry and Castro, the only drivers that have penalties, and Sims picks up another penalty. Infamous with 9 seconds now, so they're all beginning to tally up as we head to the final couple of laps, and we've got a yellow flag in sector 1 that looks like the Haas car. There's a Mercedes in the pits, and I think that might be Castro wanting to DNF in the race. Oh, and no, Barry spun it. Barry from the podium has spun out on traction. Oh, that's absolutely gutting for the Ferrari stand-in tonight. And that gives Balix P2. Simps up into the podium, but will surely lose out on penalties. And Cervilliers at the moment, without any penalties, will inherit a heap of positions here, at least a couple. Oh, and Simpson Infamous battling here for P2 for, well, net P3 on track. We've got a yellow flag in sector 1 that looks like the McLaren of Eskimo. Harry has DNF on track. Looks like he's crashed somewhere. Castle's quite far behind. See that Traw has got past Servilias into the final chicane. Oh, someone kicked up some grass there. Yeah, so it looks like Harry crashed as they've entered the chicane. Aces with a penalty. Yeah, he's binned it into the wall. Anyway, we're on the final lap now. VDV, even with his 3-second penalties, looking like he'll hold on to the win here. Balak's 2.5 seconds behind, who's under pressure from Infamous and Simps. Oh, and Sevilla is under pressure from Aces versus Kings. And the more Sevilla defends, the more time he's losing to the guys in front. But of course he's on the mediums compared to the soft runners all around him. Let's cut back to the podium positions as Simps. Oh, Simps got a big tank slapper and has lost it to Infamous there, and that's cost him big time. But Simps with DRS going for it down the inside of Infamous. Oh, and he's going to cut a huge chunk of the final corner. He'll hold on to P3 on track as VDV crosses the line for the win. Balak's second place, Infamous into third place. But look at the penalties. Servilias gets on the podium as a result of all the penalties. D'Acunha up into P4 out of nowhere. Infamous down to P5 due to the penalties. Aces in P6. Barry, who was nailed on really for P2 by the look of it, dropped it in Sector 2, fell down to P7. I mean, good points for Ferrari, but he'll be gutted with that mistake. Simps from P3 down to P8 because of penalties. Spaceman, who led for a good portion of this race, in P9. Traw in P10 after lots of penalties. Casto gets the fastest lap. So I called it. Casto with the fastest lap. Eskimo, the last of the classified finishers, in P12 rather. So Sevilla says no penalties, OP. It's definitely Infamous with the Cody's driver of the day, and I think based on what happened in the first lap, that's a good shout from Codemasters. I think it's a good shout for community driver of the day as well. But again, lots of good contenders for that. Servilias for not getting a penalty and getting on the podium. D'Acunha for not getting penalties and getting P4. And if I remember correctly, D'Acunha had a spin on the opening lap as well. So some good recovery drives in this race. As VDV picks up his first win of the season. So the only full-time drivers to pick up wins in Newton League so far are VDV and Servilias, and they're both sharing the podium here in Canada along with Balak's in P2 for the Red Bull team. So I think it's going to be top between VDV, Balak's and Infamous, and Servilias as well with that podium. So here's your final results here. VDV winning from Balak's, from Servilias the podium. D'Acunha in P4, Infamous P5, Aces P6, Barry in P7, Simps in P8, Spaceman P9, Traw P10, Casto with fastest lap in P11, Eskimo P12, and then our DNFs, which are the two Haas boys of Harry Mystic, Rob in the Alfa Romeo, and Chinchilla in the Ferrari. So that was round 4 and 5 of Newton League. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to vote for your driver of the day. Let's have a quick look at the championship for the next round, which is next Sunday night. We have got Monza and Austin, Texas, Kota. So one low downforce, one medium downforce track. So potentially low downforce with those back straights. So should be a good couple of races next week. So hope you can join us for that. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.